What's going on, Jerome's? So today, unfortunately, is the 25-year anniversary of the 1998 NFC Championship Game, where Gary Anderson missed the field goal. Vikings, probably their best shot in franchise history, to go down and win a Super Bowl. I think that 100% they would have beaten the Denver Broncos, but it is what it is. The Vikings lose at home in the Dome to the Falcons, the Dirty Birds, blah, 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 blah. Right. And I almost didn't want to talk about it because it's so it's so sad. And I try to black most of it out because it basically is like a childhood trauma for me because I remember I was 13 years young, and I've talked about this before. It was like the first year where I'd become a draft guru, right? Getting the Sports Illustrateds, getting the sport magazines, and reading up about Random Mouse from Marshall. I was so pumped when he fell in the draft, and Denny Green decided to take a chance on the young man, and he became like the greatest weapon in NFL history at the receiver position. Right, and the 98 Vikings were fun. Randall Cunningham, former Philadelphia Eagle, he was retired. He was installing granite countertops in Vegas. He was preaching, and the Vikings picked him up to back up Brad Johnson. Brad Johnson got hurt, and then Randall Cunningham, MVP adjacent type season. It was amazing, right? And of course, longtime favorites of mine, Chris Carter, Jumpin' John Randall, Regulators, mount up. I mean, it was a good time, and I feel like taste in sports and taste in music. Your mind is like wet cement from age 12 to 20. Sure. So you got like 8 years, and then your taste in music and your taste in sports is solidified. And for me, the 98 Vikings just got me hooked, man. Because I mean, if the Vikings were just average, below average during that time, sort of whatever, kind of like what they were in the early 2000s, I mean, maybe the hook isn't set. Maybe I'm a Vikings fan like I'm a Minnesota Gophers fan. We're just casual geographical default. But long story longer, everyone blames Gary Anderson for that game, right? And it's very much akin to Blair Walsh shank at the bank. Because yes, they should have made their respective kicks. I think Blair Walsh was like a 27-yarder. Gary Anderson's a 38, so very makeable. But people forget the shank at the bank game, cold weather. Blair Walsh was the only Viking who scored points that day, including I think a couple of his field goals were from 40 plus yards. But that's beside the point. And with Anderson, yeah, Gary Anderson hasn't missed a field goal in 2 years. Unbelievable, that whole thing. But you go back and take a look at the game, and I feel like it's like selective memories, and maybe it's repressed memories. And like, I feel like people think that Gary Anderson, that was the game-winning kick. It wasn't. It was far from the game-winning kick, and there was a lot of issues with the Vikings that day. Moss and Carter only had 12 catches total. Randy Moss got a touchdown, but overall, Atlanta was doing a good job. You double, triple teaming him down the field, but nothing else was opening up underneath. The running game wasn't really getting going. Robert Smith was under 4 yards a carry. Randall Cunningham had 2 fumbles deep in Vikings territory. One resulted in a touchdown right away. And the defense was a little bit much maligned that year, and John Randall got hurt, and it was TBD if he would have even been able to play in the Super Bowl. But I mean, the defense is allowed to get a stop because, again, that kick wasn't to end the game. That kick happened with like 2 minutes and 10 seconds left. So, and the Vikings were still up 7, and the Falcons had to march down the field. They had to put one in the end zone, and the defense didn't get a stop. And then on top of that, so the 98 Vikings was the greatest offense in NFL history at the time, and they had the ball with 49 seconds left, all 3 of their timeouts at their own 20. And yes, Gary Anderson had just missed the field goal, but his career long was 55. So beep, bop, 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 boop. They had to get to about the 38-yard line. So 12. So they had, again, the greatest offense in NFL history. 49 seconds, 3 timeouts, and they had to get 42 yards. And so they took a shot on second down. I think Randy Moss was actually interfered with, but they didn't call it. Shocker. But it was 3rd and 3 from the Vikings 27 with 30 seconds left and 2 timeouts, and then Denny Green took a knee. I have a lot of issues with that. Because could you imagine if that happened today? Could you imagine if say the Chiefs at the height of their powers, like just took the ball out of Mahomes' hands, and obviously it's not a good corollary, but take the highest powered offense in the league, and just take the air out of the ball, pun intended, and just you don't give them a shot. Plus, remember the overtime rules. That was the OG overtime rules, where it was sudden death. Any score wins you the game. You don't have to score a touchdown, right? And the Vikings got the ball first. The Vikings actually had 2 possessions in overtime, and all they needed was a field goal, and they couldn't get it done. And then, fortunately, the defense let the Falcons in field goal range on the Falcons' second possession, and that ended it. But again, everyone blames Gary Anderson, and yeah, he should have made that kick to put the Vikings up 10 with 2 minutes to go in the NFC title game. Gave them a little bit of breathing room. But also, there was a lot of game after that, man. And the Vikings were still significantly favored even after Gary Anderson missed that field goal. Again, the defense could have got a stop, but they didn't. The Falcons marched all the way down the field. The Vikings, at the end of regulation, had 3 timeouts, 49 seconds. Definitely could have done something. And then the Vikings had 2 possessions in overtime under the old sudden death overtime rules. And they couldn't get into field goal range, couldn't get anything going. So I understand that people unfairly scapegoat Gary Anderson, but that was a team loss. Just like every game that comes down to a single play, people just remember that play. No, it was a team loss all the way around, and it's just so infuriating because that was our squad, man. Like that was our 2000 Ravens, that was our 99 Rams, that was our 85 Bears, that was our 2013 Seahawks. Just an amazing team. Hits that one time and hoists that Jerome Barty, but it wasn't meant to be. Yeah. Anyways, that's it. I made myself sad now. Why did I do this? Anyways, you know what to do. Skull, no production value.